welcome back to the channel. So in this video we are going to start learning about CSS grid, and the way we are going to do it is to learn by building this magazine project you see here. Okay, so CSS grid is used to create layout in website, right? And it's similar to the way Flexbox works. So it does something similar to what Flexbox does. All right, so let's get started. The first step we want to take is to add our HTML boilerplate, and let's begin by declaring the doc type, which is going to be HTML. Then we are going to add our HTML elements like so. The HTML element will have a lang attribute with a value of en, which stands for English. Then we also want to give it a head and body element. So we begin with the head, then we also give it a body element like so. All right, next thing we want to do is inside our head element, we want to add some meta tags. Okay, so the first meta tag will have an attribute of char set, which we will set to UTF-8. And then for the second meta element, that is going to be for mobile responsiveness. So what we are going to do is we're going to say name attribute. Let's give it a value of viewport. We'll also use the content attribute, and then we'll give it a value of width equals device width. Then we'll set the initial scale to 1.0. Okay. Yeah, so that should be it for this step. Let's move on. All right, next up, we want to add a title element with a text magazine. So inside our head element, let's just add a title element like so. And the text is going to be magazine. Okay, so if you are not sure what the title element does, is what shows up here. So as you can see in this browser, the title element is what we put in the title element is what shows up here in the tab. All right, now the next thing we want to do is we want to add a link element for this. Okay, so this is going to give us some fonts from the Google APIs. Okay, so when you go to Google and search Google Fonts, Google Fonts will give you access to a whole lot of fonts that you can use in your project. Okay, so by adding this link into our head element, we have access to all of that, the ones that we selected. So in this case, let me copy it, then I'll show you later. What I will do is I will do link, and then I'll say rel. That will be style sheet, and then we'll give it an href. So the value of the href is going to be the link to the Google APIs. So as you can see now, the font family that we are going to use in this project is Anton. As you can see, Baskerville, and then Railway. So for example, if I come to Google Font and I search for Anton, you can see Anton is one of the fonts in Google Fonts. Okay, the same for the other two as well. All right, so the next link element we want to add is going to be for font awesome. Okay, so let me copy it, and then I'll show you what font awesome does. I'm going to say rel with the value of style sheet. We're also going to give it an href whose value is going to be the link to font awesome. Now font awesome is also a resource or a website that gives us access to many icons. So you get different icons that you can use in your project. Okay, now finally we also want to add a link to our style sheet, which we have right here. So I'll say link, let's give it a real attribute of style sheet. Then this one is going to have a link of this value. Okay, so we say href, and we'll give it this value. Okay, so what this means is that in this project we are getting some style elements from Google Fonts. We're also getting some style elements from Font Awesome, and we're also getting some styles that we'll be creating on our own. Okay, now within the body we want to create a main element. So we'll say main, then in that element we want to create a session. This session is going to have a class with the value of heading. Okay, all right, next up, let's create a header element within the heading element. So this is the element with a class of heading. So within this one we are going to create a header element like so. All right, and then we want to set the class for this header element to hero. So let's say class hero. Now in that element, let's create an emg element with a source attribute set to this link here. So we'll come here, let's create an emg element. Let's give it a source attribute. Then what I'll do is I'll come and copy this one right here. So this is the FreeCodeCamp logo image. As you can see, this is the image. By default, it's a very large image, so we have to set the size. We'll work on that later. So let's add an alt. The value of alt is going to be FreeCodeCamp logo. And then let's also add a class attribute with the value of hero-image. Okay, now let's talk about another attribute called loading attribute. So what this loading attribute does is that if it is set to lazy, then it tells the browser not to fetch the image from the server until it is actually needed. So for example, if the user is not on the part of the screen where that image is being displayed, then the browser is not going to fetch the image from the server. But if the user scrolls to a point where that image is displayed, then the browser will have to go fetch it from the server. So one benefit of lazy loaded element is that it will not load until the non-lazy elements are loaded. So this means users with slow internet connections can view the content of your page without having to wait for images to load. Okay, so for our image element, we want to give it a loading attribute. The value of the loading attribute is going to be lazy, like so. Okay, let's set the, okay, there's a spelling mistake here. It should be logo, not log. Alright, so for step 5, after your image element, add an h1 element with a class set to hero title. So after the image element, this is our image element, want to add an h1 element. Let's add an h1 element like so. Now the h1 element is going to have a class. The value of the class is going to be hero title, and then want to set the text to our new curriculum, followed by a p element. So let's add our p element. Why do I keep typing capital P? Yeah, inside our p element, we want to give our p element a class of subtitle, hero subtitle, and then let's give it the text. Let me just copy it like so. Okay, so for number 6, your image currently takes up a whole lot of space, as you can see. So to better see what you are working on, we want to give it a width attribute to the image element. So here is the image element. We come here and say width. The value we want to give it is 400. You remove this later on when you have worked on the CSS. Okay, so as you can see, this is our FreeCodeCamp logo on a dark background. So that's similar to what we have here. All right, now let's move on. What we want to do is we want to create a div after our header element. So we come here and say div. The class we want to give that div will be author, and then within that div we want to create a p element. So let's create a p element. The value of the p element is going to be, okay, first let's give it a class of author dash name, and then let's give it the text of by FreeCodeCamp. Now wrap the FreeCodeCamp portion in an a element, which is a link. So we want to turn the FreeCodeCamp text into a link. Okay, now we say href, then I'll copy this FreeCodeCamp link here and paste it as our value for the href. And then the target, let's say target, and give it the value of underscore blank. Sorry. So what this will do is that when somebody click the link, it will open the link in a new page. All right. Now below that, we want to add a second p element. So let's add a second p element, and then the value of the second p element is going to be March 7, 2019. But first, let's also give it a class of publish dash date. Okay. Now the referrer HTTP header contains information about the address of the URL of a page that a user might be visiting from. Okay, so this information can be used in analytics to track how many users from your page visited, for example, in this case freecodecamp.org or whatever page it is. So for example, setting the rel attribute, we want to set the rel attribute non-referrer, and this will omit the information from the HTTP request so that no one will know the number of people who have, let's say, visited FreeCodeCamp from your website or wherever it is. So we'll come to our A and we'll say rel, let's set it to non-referrer. Okay, all right. So once again, the referrer HTTP header is what, for example, if you see affiliate marketers, the way what helps companies know the number of users or number of customers who visited their website from a different website other than theirs. Okay. Sorry, it should be no referrer, not non-referrer. Now, for step 9, let's create a new div element. Okay. And then let's give it a class with the value of social dash icons. Okay. Now we also want to add 5a elements within that new div. So I'll come here and create one of the div. So each div is going to have this right here, this link here, an href. So let me just add an href like so. Now I'm going to just copy this and repeat it 4 times so that we get 5 of them. Okay, so now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so the first one will have a link to Facebook. The second one will have a link to Twitter. The third, a link to Instagram. Okay, let's do a link to LinkedIn, and then finally we'll do YouTube like so. All right, now within each of your A elements, what we are going to do is we are going to add an I element and give them the following classes. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a shortcut here. I'm going to click here, then I'll hold Option. If you're on Windows, hold Alt, and then I'll also click here. Still holding Option or Alt, I'll click here, and also click here. So that way I can type at multiple places at the same time. So I'll click Enter. Okay, now create the opening I tag. Okay, delete this. Let me create a closing I tag. Okay, now I don't want to give it a class. All of them will have a class, so I'll say class. Fine. Although the class are not the same, if you look closely you see that all of them have a class of fab. Okay, so I'm just going to say fab. FAB, then I'll say FA dash, then I'll add them one by one. So this I is using the classes that we are getting from here. We are getting it from Font Awesome. Okay, so each icon in Font Awesome has its class name. So if we use the class name here, then we can access that image or icon and use it. So for example, the icon for the Facebook logo is FA-Facebook, then we'll say -F. As you can see, we have our Facebook icon here. Let's also do that for Twitter. I will say FA-Twitter, and there you have our Twitter icon appearing. Same thing for Instagram, LinkedIn. I think it should be LinkedIn-in. Then we also have YouTube. Let's do it for YouTube as well. Yeah, that's it. So now we are done creating the first part or the header of our magazine that we are building. Okay, so I'll end here, and in the next video we'll look at steps 11 all the way to 20. All right, see you later.